As we finish out 2016 and roar into 2017, one of the great benefits of the Trump victory was focusing on Islam. And we're going to do that in tonight's episode. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance. Donald Trump made huge waves and in part won the election by saying that he was going to put a temporary ban on Muslim immigrants from areas of the world, countries where we know that there are terrorists and there's terrorist training and terrorist funding. This, of course, caused a firestorm with the media elite and with the left-wing lunatics, but it helped him win the election and it focused the light on the truth about Islam. Just a little light, but it was the light nonetheless. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and 2 years producing this 4-DVD set. It's a serial movie. It's a movie series called What Would Muhammad Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained. In tonight's show, we're going to look at 4 of the segments. 1 on killing mockers, 2 on anti-Semitism, 3 on coercion and conversion, and then finally on jihad. So here is Muhammad's contribution, the founder of Islam, Muhammad's contribution to killing those who mock him and mock Islam. Again, we see Muhammad, after the Battle of Badr, sending a lone wolf to murder a man that had insulted him in poetry. After Abu Afaq's murder, a woman named Asma, the daughter of Marwan, wrote verses against Muhammad.
Do you expect good from him after the killing of your chiefs? Like a hungry man waiting for a cook's broth? Is there no man of pride who would attack him by surprise and cut off the hopes of those who expect aught from him?
Ibn Ishaq records these words.
When the apostle heard what she had said, he said,
"Who will rid me of Marwan's daughter?"
Umayr, who was with him, heard him, and that very night he went to her house and killed her. In the morning he came to the apostle and told him what he had done.
You have helped God and his apostle, O Umayr.
Asma was murdered in her bed while she held her baby at Muhammad's order and with his congratulations by yet another lone wolf because she had insulted Muhammad. From Badr forward, Muhammad had people killed for mocking him. Even people who had insulted him a decade earlier in Mecca. Muhammad ultimately conquered Mecca, but before he entered the city at the head of a massive army, he named 7 men and women who were to be summarily killed if they were found. 3 of the 7 were condemned to death because they had apostatized. In other words, they stopped believing in Muhammad. Muhammad ordered the execution of the others because they had mocked him.
One of the apostates had 2 female singers who would sing songs mocking the messenger of God and the Muslims. This is why the messenger of God condemned him and the 2 singers to death. Also, he condemned Al-Huwayrith. He had been one of those who insulted the messenger of God in Mecca. Then there was Sarah, who was also executed because she used to insult the messenger of God while he was in Mecca.
Muhammad executed people for insults that were 10 years old. The new message of Islam was clear. There is no God but Allah, Muhammad is his messenger, and do not criticize or mock Muhammad because you will be killed. To this very day, Muslims throughout the world call for the death of those who mock or criticize Muhammad because it's what Muhammad did. And sometimes they carry out the sentence. A recent heinous crime illustrating this point was the murder of the Dutch filmmaker Theo van Gogh, a relative of the painter Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh teamed with Ayaan Hirsi Ali, who was born into a Muslim family in Somalia and emigrated to Holland. She renounced Islam because of the sexual abuse and violence that Muslim women endure under Islamic law. She was also elected to the Dutch parliament. She wrote the script for a film portraying the abuse of Muslim women. Theo van Gogh turned the script into the film, Submission, Part 1. After the film's release in 2004, Theo van Gogh was brutally murdered in broad daylight in Copenhagen by Mohammed Bouyeri, a 26-year-old Muslim man. Bouyeri was what authorities call a lone wolf who had self-radicalized. He had no connection to a so-called terrorist group. He simply read the Quran and read the Hadith and read the biographies on Muhammad's life. Those books told him what Muhammad would want. He shot and then stabbed Van Gogh, then tried to cut off his head. He plunged a large knife into his chest, pinning a letter to Van Gogh's dead body. The letter praised Islam and warned Miss Ali of a similar fate because she had insulted Muhammad and Islam.
Ayan Hersi Ali, you will break yourself to pieces on Islam. There will be no mercy shown to the purveyors of injustice. Only the sword will be lifted against them.
I encourage you, friend, go to the website that you see on your TV screen and order this series now. I'll be right back. Perhaps you have a message that you want to reach tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. We have the venue for you. You can buy a 1-minute ad on this program. We can help you produce the commercial. Obviously, we have to agree with the content, but if you want to reach into 130 cities, that's how many cities we're in. If you want to reach into 30 million homes, that's how many homes we're in. We have the opportunity for you on this program, and our rates are incredible. This could be a message about politics. It could be a message about your ministry. It could be a message or a remembrance about a loved one or some great hero in history. And then, of course, it could just be your family business that you want to take national. Give us a call, and we will talk to you about the rates and the ability to produce a hard-hitting ad for you to run on this show. The Obama administration in recent days has insulted the nation of Israel and given the backhand to everyone who loves Israel by abstaining from the vote that condemned Jewish settlements. President Obama, I believe, is anti-Semitic. I really believe it. But what's more important, and that would have come from his Islamic heritage as a boy. Islam is inherently anti-Semitic because Muhammad had such a visceral hatred of the Jews. So in this segment, we're going to let you see Muhammad's hatred of the Jews in his own words. This is Islam as Muhammad started it. Today, deceiving Muslim propagandists will tell us that this is how enemies were dealt with in those days. No, it was not common to kill teenage boys and old men who could not so much as carry a sword. And if Muhammad was the prophet of God, then he was doing Allah's will, not mimicking the evil behaviors of his day. Because Muhammad did this to the Jews, Muslim terrorists believe they should do the same. The Jews who had escaped earlier to Khaybar, they were about to find a similar fate. Muhammad and his men journeyed to Khaybar, about 110 miles from Medina, to launch an unprovoked attack. Muhammad's son-in-law, Ali, asked Muhammad,
Allah's messenger, on what issue should I fight with the people? Thereupon, he said,
Fight with them until they bear testimony to the fact that there is no God but Allah and Muhammad is his messenger.
They could swear allegiance to Muhammad with a sword at their throats and thereby save themselves, or they could face Muhammad's sword. Muhammad knew they were not going to convert. So without warning and without justification, Muhammad and his men arrived. Muhammad cried out,
Allahu Akbar. Khaybar is destroyed.
The apostle seized the property piece by piece and conquered the forts one by one as he came to them. The apostle took captives from them, among whom was Safiya. The apostle chose Safiya for himself.
This is why Muslim terrorists yell Allah Akbar before they attack and kill their enemies. It's what Muhammad would do. Safiya was married to Kinana, one of the chiefs of Khaybar, who was the tribe's treasurer. Kinana was dragged before Muhammad. Muhammad demanded the gold. Kinana told him there was none to be had. Sadly, another Jew informed Muhammad that Kinana was hiding the wealth at a nearby ruin. Muhammad told Kinana,
You know that if we find it in your possession, I shall kill you.
Kinana said yes and prepared to die. Muhammad's men found some of the gold. Muhammad demanded Kinana surrender the rest. Again, Kinana bravely refused. So Muhammad gave orders to his men.
Torture him until you extract what he has.
So he kindled a fire with flint and steel on his chest until he was nearly dead. The apostle delivered him to Muhammad, son of Maslama, and he struck off his head.
Muhammad had Kinana tortured, not for military information, not so that Muhammad could save the lives of his soldiers or his family. He had him tortured for money. After Kinana was dead, Muhammad took the man's beautiful young bride, Safiya, for a sex slave. Khaybar was brutally defeated. Muhammad divided the rest of the women and spoils amongst his men. He later decided to make Safiya one of his wives. Other Jews in a nearby town surrendered unconditionally. All their homes and lands became the personal property of Muhammad. He allowed them to remain as sharecroppers on the condition that they could be expelled at any time by the Muslims. Muhammad had become a very wealthy man. On his deathbed, Muhammad instructed his companions,
Do not leave two religions on the Arabian Peninsula.
That meant that no other religion except Islam would be allowed on Arabian soil, which is the law of Saudi Arabia up to this very day. After Muhammad's death, a handful of Jews converted under duress. All the rest of the Jews and Christians were permanently expelled from Arabia. Their properties were confiscated. Muhammad's hatred of the Jews never subsided, and that hatred burns today in the hearts of his most devoted followers. Consider Hamas, who have killed hundreds of Jewish men, women, and children. Their charter declares,
Our struggle against the Jews is very great and very serious. Hamas is but one squadron that should be supported by more and more squadrons from the vast Arab and Islamic world until the enemy, Israel, is vanquished and Allah's victory is realized.
As a Christian leader and as a public speaker, I've had the privilege of speaking in some of the largest events in America, some of the biggest pulpits in America. I've spoken at the late Jerry Falwell's Thomas Road Baptist Church, and I've spoken inside of the Vatican. I also would be honored to come and to speak in your community. If you have an event where you need a public speaker and you want to talk about pro-life, you want to talk about marriage, you want to talk about political activism, you want to talk about the threat of Islam, there's many issues that I'm fairly well read on and can speak to your group. If you need a speaker for a fundraising event, I've done many of them and helped people raise hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years. So I'm available to you. If you'd like to talk to me about coming into your community to speak at your event, contact us at the web address or the phone number that you see on the screen. Donald Trump's victory in the November election, and he will soon be sworn in, was a great boon to those of us who understand that Islam is an existential threat to Christianity. Just go to the cradle of Christianity. Go to Turkey, go to Galatia, go to Ephesus, you know, the book of Galatians, the book of Ephesians. Go to Damascus, where Paul had his conversion on the Damascus Road. What do you find? Christianity is all but obliterated. Churches destroyed, stolen, taken over, turned into mosques. That is Islam. In this segment, we're going to show you the direct connection from Muhammad and his call to violence for conversion. Yes, he used violence and coercion and fear and dread to convert people to Islam. That was his modus operandi.
We must understand, terrorism is not for the dead, it's for the living. When a criminal commits murder, it's usually to seek vengeance against a specific person. If that person is dead, the goal is accomplished. But with terror, indiscriminate slaughter, rape, public torture, the goal is to strike terror in the hearts of the living so that individuals change their behavior or governments change their policies. This is why we say terrorism is not for the dead. Terrorism is for the living. Muhammad's ultimate goal in the use of terror was to establish Islam. He ordered his generals,
Fight in the name of Allah and in the way of Allah. Fight against those who disbelieve in Allah. Make a holy war. When you meet your enemies, invite them to 3 courses of action. Invite them to accept Islam. If they respond to you, accept it from them and desist from fighting against them. If they refuse to accept Islam, demand from them the non-Muslim tax. If they agree to pay, accept it from them and hold off your hands. If they refuse to pay the tax, seek Allah's help and fight them.
following Muhammad's orders, Muslim terrorists use terrorism for the conversion of non-Muslims or to intimidate non-Muslim individuals or governments into complying with the goals of Islam. In recent years, non-Muslims in Syria and Iraq have converted to Islam rather than be killed. Sex slaves have converted to Islam in order to become wives. After Al-Qaeda bombed the train stations in Spain, the Spanish government agreed to withdraw their support from the Allied coalition, a change in government policy. After Hezbollah blew up the U.S. Marine barracks in Lebanon, killing 241 people, President Reagan withdrew all U.S. ground forces from Lebanon, a change in government policy. When Muslim terrorists in France murdered the staff of Charlie Hebdo for running political cartoons against Muhammad, most major newspapers in non-Muslim nations would not show those cartoons. The newspapers complied with the demands of terrorists and the rules of Sharia law. They were terrorized into compliance by what they saw happen at Charlie Hebdo. They had a change in editorial policy. Muhammad spoke contemptuously of his frightened enemies.
And they thought that their fortresses would defend them from Allah. But the wrath of Allah came to them from quarters from which they little expected it, and cast terror into their hearts, so that they destroyed their dwellings by their own hands and the hands of the Muslims believers. Take warning, then, O ye with eyes to see.
This is how Islam was founded and steadily grew into an oppressive world power. Sadly, Western leaders, institutions, and non-Muslim nations today, like Muhammad's terrified enemies 1,400 years ago, are destroying their own dwellings by their own hands, their freedoms, their most sacred principles, because of terror in their hearts. In one of Muhammad's battles, he conquered the tribe of Al-Mustalik. Death and fear produced many converts.
God put the enemy to flight and killed some of them, and gave the apostle their wives, children, and property as booty. When the apostle distributed the captives, the daughter of one of the chiefs, Jeraria, fell to the lot of Tabit to become his slave.
Aisha said she was a most beautiful woman. She captivated every man who saw her. She came to the apostle to ask his help in the matter. By God, as soon as I saw her, I hated her for coming to the prophet, for I knew he would see her as I did. She went in and told him who she was. You can see what misfortune has befallen me. I have come to you to ask your aid for my ransom. Muhammad said to her,
Would you like something better than that?
She said, What is it, messenger of God?
I will pay your ransom and marry you.
She said, Yes, messenger of God. And he said,
I do so.
When the news got out to the people that the messenger of God had married Juwairiya, they said, They are relatives by the marriage of the messenger of God, and they set free those in their possession. When he married her, 100 families were freed. I know of no woman who was a greater blessing to her people.
Friend, order this series, please. You'll know more when you watch this movie series than you have learned in your entire life about Islam because of the research and the footnotes that are in this series. I'll be right back. Christmas is almost here, and many of us are going through that annual struggle. What do I buy him? What do I buy her? In other words, there's a list of people in our lives that we need to or want to buy gifts for, and we just don't know what to get them. May I recommend not a tie and not chocolate this year, but the new DVD series, What Would Muhammad Do? Islamic Terrorism Explained. This is a serial documentary, something like you might see on Discovery Channel or PBS, that has 8 hours of material. And you won't think it's 8 hours. You'll be thinking, where'd it go? I want more, I want more. I'm encouraging you, friend, get this, get multiple copies. And the more copies you get, the greater the discount. I'm letting you know, there are people who are going to watch this after you give them this as a Christmas gift, and they're going to thank you and say, this is one of the best gifts I've ever gotten. As we close out 2016, many of us have had an epiphany. We finally get it, that Islam is an existential threat to all other religions, to human freedom, to human dignity. Islam is committed to jihad because Muhammad, the founder of Islam, launched a jihad against all other religions. Now, I'm so thankful that Donald Trump won this election. But I want you to know, I'm going to say it again, it is a reprieve. It is a reprieve. The hard work is ahead of us, dealing with Iran and their nuclear weapons. Do you understand that if Iran wants to view itself, if the leaders of Iran want to view themselves as martyrs who get to heaven by destroying Israel, or the great Satan America, or just wounding and killing millions of people in Israel or in America with the nuclear weapons that they will soon possess, they have a theology to undergird this insane vision. Understand it, friend. Jihad is how Islam was started. Jihad is how Islam has been sustained. And jihad is going to be with us until the sword of Islam and the sword of jihad is forever broken. Friend, I appreciate your prayers. We got a call a couple days ago from a man. I took the phone call from a man in Los Angeles area who ordered 10 sets of What Would Muhammad Do? A man in Canada watching who ordered 3 sets. Please call the number that you see on the screen or go to the website and order this series. Order multiple sets to give away to your pastor, to the police chief in your area. You will learn more about Islam and Muhammad than you've ever learned in your whole life, and it's all brilliantly footnoted for you. It's all their words. It's all Muhammad's words, not ours. It's theirs. God bless you. Have a great new year. Be safe. We'll see you next year.